Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of 1 Timothy. Today we're looking at 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 13 through 15. Now, I've been looking at this last paragraph of chapter 2 the last few days, talking about Paul's comments on women and their place and role in the church. There's one more part of this passage we need to talk about today, which is very confusing for us and very difficult to understand what Paul means. This says chapter 2, verses 13 through 15. Paul says, "For Adam was formed first and then Eve, and Adam was not the one who was deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But women will be saved through childbearing, if they continue in faith, love, and holiness with propriety." And when we read this, we're immediately confused. What does Paul mean? Women will be saved through childbearing. We know from all the other passages of Paul, all of his other letters, Paul is absolutely clear we're saved by grace through faith in Jesus alone. Nothing else has anything to do with it. Faith is the means of salvation. Saved by grace through faith alone. So what is Paul talking about when he says in this passage, women will be saved through childbearing? But if you read the whole context, Paul is placing this in the story of creation and the fall. He talks about Adam being created, then Eve, and talks about the fall. So we're talking about Genesis chapter 1, 2, and 3. So that's the context. Now, when you look back to the story of the fall in chapter 3, of course, we remember that story quite well. We don't want to talk about it all today. But after the fall occurs and God comes and confronts the serpent, Eve, and Adam as to what had happened. And in his comments to the serpent, he makes the first biblical prophetic word of the gospel, of the coming of Jesus, who will undo the harm that has been caused by this sin. The one will come who will undo what sin has caused. The one will come to redeem us. That's found in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. And the Lord says, he speaks to the serpent, but he says, "I will put enmity between you," that is the serpent, "and the woman, between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, you will strike his heel." God talked about the day when the offspring of Eve, the seed of Eve, would come, and he would destroy the work of the serpent. He would crush the head of the serpent. Now the serpent will strike his heel, trying to undo his work, but the seed of Eve will come and crush the head of the serpent. In other words, the seed of Eve will come, the one through the line of Eve, and destroy what the serpent brought about through his temptation and then the sin of Adam and Eve. So this Genesis 3 verse 15 is the first prediction, the first prophetic word of the gospel that will come, that Jesus will come as the seed of Eve and will provide redemption from sin. I believe that's what Paul is referencing in 1 Timothy chapter 2. He's talked about the creation story, the fall, and then he says women will be saved through childbearing. He's referring to that prophetic word. Eve will become the mother of all the living. Through her will come the human race, right? And of the seed of Eve will come the Messiah, who will redeem us. And so when Paul says it's through childbearing you will be saved, he's talking about that line of Eve. That one day, through the line of Eve, the Messiah will come and salvation will be provided. So he's simply referencing the story of creation and then the fall, and how God prophesied that one day the Son would come, the Messiah, who will save us all from sin. He will be of the descent of Eve. The seed of Eve will come and save us all. Eve's offspring will one day be the Redeemer, Jesus. And that's been referenced in 1 Timothy chapter 2. So he's taking that historical view that out of Eve, from the line of Eve, will come the Messiah. He says that her offspring will one day come and crush the head of Satan, the work of the devil, sin brought into the world. Join us tomorrow. We have one more little bit about this end of chapter 2, and then we'll be ready to move on in 1 Timothy. So join us for our next session in the 5-minute Bible study of 1 Timothy.